What is up, everyone, and welcome to another issue of Sibling Rivalry, the comic book club show hosted by yours truly, it's Ben Pye, and my wonderful, amazing sister, Anakin.
Get it? Because it's funny.
Heyo. You don't need to tell people it's punny every time we do it.
But then I don't know how to segue to me talking.
Because saying hello is just too much.
Sir?
Anyways, just as a reminder, Sibling Rivalry is the comic book club show that we host so that we can get to know some new heroes, some new comic books, and do it with our lovely listeners, viewers, whatever you want to call it. This show, new live date is going to be every Friday as kind of the flagship show of Sibling Rivalry. And we do have some new weekly content that will be coming out as well. So stay tuned to our YouTube channel for that extra content. It's going to be great. So this week, it's DC. It's DC week. Last week we did Wolverine by Chris Claremont and Frank Miller. That was my choice. This week is DC, chosen by
Me, and I
Anakin.
always feel like I'm a huge letdown given how much I love DC over Marvel. Anyway, so this time I picked Green Lantern, and my initial idea for or reasoning for picking this one after having picked not Green, Martian Manhunter was because when I read the description, it was like Manhunter. So in my head, I thought Martian Manhunter was the villain. And then, I started reading, I was like, oh, never mind. So I'm blonde for anybody not watching and only listening. So I feel like that, can excuse a little bit of that. But so yeah, that was the initial reasoning for picking it. Um Yeah, I've still enjoyed it, but what did you think? Because you're always go first with the story anyway. But what was your take?
So this is it's an origin story for Hal Jordan as the Green Lantern, but it's a
In
little
this
different
universe?
a different universe than the main one. I have to say, I thought the universe was super interesting.
Same.
And the fact that Ferris Industries is essentially going around and um, like trying to mine asteroids
They're like
for valuable materials.
there's
Um,
space garbage hunters, essentially.
Essentially, yeah, it's like the gold rush but in space. And Hal Jordan is someone who just doesn't want to be on Earth anymore. Um, and I really the because I mean the origin of the Green Lanterns. Everyone, maybe not everyone knows that they were founded, created by the Owens. Um, but this universe where um, Oa had essentially wanted to destroy the Green Lantern Corps and create these manhunters, and the Green Lantern Corps is kind of at a complete, like, in shambles. It's hard to find a Green
Like,
Lantern,
yeah, when you
and the rings aren't like hunting down their new, like, hosts, wielders.
newsworthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so it was kind of like, oh, whoever finds a ring could be a Green Lantern. But like, essentially, for lack of a better term, a castrated Green Lantern. Just absolutely devoid of the true power that the Green Lanterns are. And I think, like, one of the things that I always found super interesting about the Green Lantern Corps is that their power is driven specifically by um, will. Green is
Yeah.
will, correct?
Green as well.
Yeah. Um, so when the rings try to find worthy wielders, they're looking for those that are strong of will. And I always thought that was kind of an interesting way to do the story and like introduce these powers. But that was not mentioned at all throughout this book.
But that's because everybody who has a Green Lantern ring, very few of them actually know anything about the original core.
It's true.
Core.
Mm-hmm.
Course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Core.
And the only one that you actually saw wield the Green Lantern ring and actually manifest objects with it was Arisa. I think that was her name.
Oh, the girl.
Yeah.
He tried to manage the web version of DC Universe Infinite. Lot easier to use on the tablet, but we're trying. We are out here doing our very best. But yeah, so this is definitely the first that you see actual like corporeal things
from the rings.
from the ring.
So I'd be interested to know more about all of these characters, which unfortunately Earth 1 Green Lantern only has 2 volumes. I mean, you know that you're not going to get all of the backstory you probably are interested in hearing between Kilowog, Arisa. I think we saw Sinestro, or at least the same species as Sinestro. I guess we can't
you did
really
see. I'm pretty sure that was Sinestro.
Okay. And then knowing more about Hal and the corruption with the weapon, the space weapon that he helped launch. The platform, like the weapon platform, and he was under. You don't remember that?
Nope.
The whole reason why he wanted to stay in space was because he was working on this, like.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. At the very beginning.
Yeah, and it turned out to be a weapons platform, and he didn't know, and then they turned it against his own people, and.
Yep.
I'd be more interested also to hear about that origin and just understand it a little bit better, because I feel like we just scratched the surface of that. And so yeah, I thought that this had a lot of promise to hear more or learn more about this particular world and these people.
I think sorry, go continue. I
was going to say, and then I love that Arisa is the leader of the Corps.
I think like I enjoyed the book. I think my one and only complaint for it is that reading through it, it feels like a book that would probably be even better if you know more about Green Lantern in general. Like it looks like it reads like a book that has a lot of references to
it would be more enjoyable to have some basic knowledge. You don't need it to understand it, but you'll have more fun reading it and seeing all the Easter eggs, like with Sinestro.
Right.
And knowing that Kilowog is actually,
yeah, and
Lantern in both worlds.
This is going to be absolutely terrible, but my knowledge of the Green Lantern stems from
the Ryan Reynolds movie.
The Ryan Reynolds movie.
Oh man.
And his brief appearances in any Justice League like TV show or
Nathan Fillion is the best Green Lantern.
Yeah, so what was it? Justice League Doom. Nathan Fillion was Green Lantern in that.
Yeah.
And I like the animated Green Lantern. Obviously, I'm not a fan of the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern. But that is like the extent of my knowledge, really, of Green Lantern.
I got the Rebirth Volume 1, and I have Emerald Dawn. in my room right now, and those are the first two that I went out to buy right before the movie came out,
Okay.
just so I could go into it with a little bit more knowledge. And then
So you have more information about sky diarrhea.
what?
What was the villain in the movie? Parallax?
Oh, yeah.
Literally looked like sky diarrhea.
Okay. I was like, excuse you? And then, well, and then because I was interested in Crisis
Uh-huh.
or Zero Hour.
0 hour, yeah.
I was interested in Zero Hour, and so I learned more about Green Lantern and Parallax, therefore,
Sky
with the
diarrhea.
0 Hour conflict, which that one I do encourage people to read, but I mean, that one crosses over multiple comics and does cover a lot of things that you might be like, I'm very confused if you don't have prior information or knowledge. But yeah, so I did enjoy this one just fine, especially as like a starter. I could recommend it to somebody who's interested in it, but it's not really something that I would give a comic book virgin to read.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just
no, I
because
think
I don't think it's going to be like the comic book to get you into comic books.
I agree. I think there's maybe a little too much going on.
Mhm.
And I mean, if you're
I
super into
would say-
sci-fi, this might actually be a fairly decent one to go into. But it's throwing like God knows how many alien races with no other real explanation of them into the mix of everything, and I think that's kind of the thing.
Yeah, I will say I would be if I had a friend who was only interested in Marvel, this with the Manhunters gave me huge Sentinel vibes. So I'd be like, here you go, read
Yes,
this. um,
absolutely, 150,000%.
like almost to the point where I was like, they weren't all that creative with their design of who they are. Um, and the purpose of creating them and the was all very Sentinel like. And I was like, well, okay.
Absolutely. Um, yeah. I mean, overall, I didn't dislike the story. I really really enjoyed the whole like them finding the ship on the on that asteroid.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed a lot of those initial scenes just in space, like from an art standpoint, which I know is your area of expertise. I think I almost enjoyed being in space and on the asteroids at the beginning of this more than I enjoyed being on Oa uh, at the end of it.
Yeah, I have like 3, maybe 4. I have 3 or 4 like favorite panels, and I want to say the majority of them are actually just in space, if not
Hmm.
all of them, because I think yeah, even later on, in the comic book, when one of my favorite panels is,
Hmm.
he is in outer space.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I
like
did really
just looking
enjoy this
at this
art
one.
style.
What's that? The art
I-
style? Yeah,
Yeah,
I did too. I was a huge fan of the art style. It was very
had
it was
nods to comic book like pop art.
but while still being incredibly cinematic.
Yeah.
Like looking at this, you have a lot of the halftone kind of texture to it, but at the same time, like this looks like something J.J. Abrams would film.
You mean like something out of Star Trek then?
I mean, you know, throw lens flare onto anything, and I feel like J.J. Abrams just gets a hard on right away.
Oh my god, I watched the commentary recently to the first Star Trek movie, and every time there was a lens flare, he was like, "Ah, look at that lens flare."
Yeah,
It was really funny. Um, but yeah, no, that
um,
was actually one of my favorite pages where he's on the moon and you have that
on an
the
asteroid.
sun flare or I'm assuming it's the sun, a star, random star flare
Hmm.
in the background. Sets a very great mood. The lighting throughout all of this was amazing. I liked the contrast. I did really enjoy the nods to like the polka dot kind of pop art.
The halftone pattern.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I loved how they illustrated the Green Lantern light or energy or weapon, however you want to
The
call it.
lantern itself, or you're talking about the
No, no,
actual
no, like
power from the ring?
the actual power from the ring.
Hmm. Yeah.
How it looked like green lightning.
Yep. Well, I mean, it just it's raw, you know, lantern power. It's not
Yeah, and I
like,
mean, it makes sense also that because they don't have enough of the power, they can't truly manifest it to make it look like anything other than pure energy.
yeah, except what's her bucket?
Yeah, except what's her bucket?
And I mean, green is one of my favorite colors. I love like the really dark um like scenes, and then just like these random streaks of green. Um it looks beautiful. Like again, just like the scenes in space, I think were just absolutely phenomenal, and I think where the art of this book um really really shined.
Yeah.
um like, don't get me wrong, it can't all be in space. I get it.
And I mean, the worlds that they've created being a heavy contrast to the outer space scenes were really well delivered
Yeah,
in terms of the storytelling device.
agreed. And every world looked a little different, and I have to say, I was getting like, as far as like the world building went, I was getting some strong Star Wars vibes.
Same. Without everything was essentially in shambles because of the uh
Manhunters.
Sentinel manhunters.
Hmm. So yeah, like I thought that was, obviously, being a big Star Wars fan, for those who don't know that, um, that was something that was really really interesting to me. You know?
Hmm. I felt like there was so much information and so much action packed into a relatively short volume collection
Yeah.
compared to like some other things that we have read. A
Right?
lot happened in this.
Exactly. And it's, if this had been like a film, I probably would have made like, not necessarily a complaint about that, but it's one of those where it's like, this one did a lot of setup, so I'm curious if like the second volume of it um, plays a little slower because of how
All the
fast
setup.
this went,
Yeah.
or if just like this entire Earth One series is that way. Um, if it's the former, I feel like they could have done something a little more with pacing, but at the same time, I understand wanting to close out the first arc with kind of freeing Oa.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's a very limited series.
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, all not. I mean, a lot of the major heroes got an Earth One um, series. Like, I know there's a Batman, a Superman, and a Wonder Woman Earth One.
Yeah, those are the three that I know of aside from this one.
Yeah. Um,
I'd be confused if there was not a Flash one, but I don't know of it.
mhm. Uh, and I liked kind of learning more about Kilowog's culture and his world. Um, I thought that was very interesting, and just like what the view of the Green Lanterns were, and what the view of his world was on the Green Lanterns, and people wanting to leave and things like that. Um, it was all interesting
Lantern.
world building and like backstory kind of things. Um, but my hope would be that in the second volume of this, that they kind of learn a little bit more about how to wield the Green Lantern power.
Yeah. I feel like, though, based on how this one ended, you're going to get just as fast-paced in terms of action and conflict because of the Yellow Lanterns.
Yeah, probably. You're probably not wrong.
More I'm thinking about it, you know?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yep. Yep.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
And I don't know if it's the case in the main world as well, but I found it interesting that like the last surviving Guardian is the one who is also creating the Yellow Lanterns.
Yeah.
And yellow is fear, right?
Yes.
Okay. What's red? Anger.
Anger.
Okay. Okay. It's the whole emotional spectrum. And
And
Kyle
then
Rayner is the White Lantern and wields them all because he's white. Right?
um I don't know about the white one. Black
Okay.
is death.
Yeah.
Pink is love because one of the villains against Green Lantern is a pink lantern.
Right. I remember that from Doom.
Um I know that there's blue.
Yeah.
I don't remember what blue is, but I know that there is blue. Just like I know that there's orange, and I
Pink.
don't remember.
Okay. Okay.
Are you Googling it now?
I'm going to Google it. But tell me a little bit more about like some of your favorite story moments in this, though.
Story moments. I feel like I touched on the majority of like the story moments with regards to how they told the story of the dwindling power within the lanterns.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed hearing multiple stories about the Green Lanterns themselves. You learn one version from the Owen, you learned one version from Kilowog, you learn one version from what's his bucket, who kind of looks like a woodchuck,
Uh-huh. Yes.
who then dies, which that was really sad. Um,
This guy.
and I feel like he had
That
so
guy.
much more to give for the story, and he was so short-lived,
Hmm.
which was very disappointing, especially since they would have been the main one to have original knowledge. And so with the whole giving it his ring to a complete stranger,
Yeah.
I feel like that was a wasted opportunity for them to learn how you know when someone is worthy of the ring. So, which sets up the next book in a interesting way for the Green Lanterns to develop overall, just because, they might have another character come in with just as old of a history, but I feel like they killed off that version very quickly.
Yeah, but maybe they'll learn more now that the power of the rings is a little more unlocked. My
Maybe.
camera
Yeah.
froze.
Oh, I didn't notice.
All good.
And then Sinestro in the next one will probably be super interesting with the Yellow Lanterns and just seeing how that develops. Watch him just die from a Yellow Lantern and that just be his story arc.
That would be incredibly sad.
Kind of be interesting though.
It would.
Um, um, and story-wise, also there was that one alien being Wow, you're so big. There was this one alien being on Oa that helped Hal.
Oh yeah, the girl
Yeah, and I felt like she
that
had such
tried to
an
steal the ring.
who had such an interesting role to play, and then her character development went, like, completely opposite of what you expect it to, and then
Yep.
she dies, which I think just as, like, "Oh my god, what the hell?" It was well done to show just how kind of messy the universe has become
Uh
with
huh.
the Manhunters.
Right. Just
You
like
see, though,
how
they couldn't have even made the Manhunters, like, a different color, like blue.
I think you still would have thought of them as
Sentinels.
sentinels, no matter what.
I know, and I'm pretty sure, like, it's not like they picked that color because they were saying, "Oh, yeah, Sentinels. They looked great red." Red
Right.
is just like the, "Ooh, bad guys. Batty bad bad."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Red is bad.
Uh,
Red is rage, by the way, not anger.
oh, I'm sorry.
White is life. Orange is avarice. Yellow is fear. Green is willpower. Blue is hope. Indigo is passion. And
Man,
violet.
I'm so mad. I was gonna guess blue was hope just because I know that Superman is blue.
Yeah, that would have been a way to go. And violet is love.
Violet, not pink.
Right.
And then, I should have also just inferred that white was life since black is death.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, not doing great.
It's all good. It's not like our go-to hero, which is one of the reasons why we choose books like this.
Yeah,
Because
and my
obviously,
go-to hero is Nightwing, and that's mostly all I read on my own.
mhm. um, but if I were ever to get like really into Green Lantern comics and start reading more of them regularly, this is probably a book that I'd come back to, just to kind of get a little more
Have more fun reading it.
exactly. Um,
It's not that it was a bad read, it's just it would be more enjoyable to read.
right.
Yeah.
And because it is an origin story, it's an easy one to just pick up and go with. But if you are wanting to pick up like a Green Lantern book, for the sake of wanting to know like the mainstream Green Lantern, this isn't your book. Um,
That's valid, yeah.
so give me some page numbers for some of your favorite panels so we can talk about them.
Okay, so aside from, the first one that we saw with him in his spacesuit,
Hmm.
which I will also say something that bothered me in the very, very beginning when they kept talking via headset, they didn't have colors specified with the characters.
Oh yeah, with who was talking.
So yeah, and so you got really confused when they were on radio as to who was talking when until later when they were like, "Oh, JK, how?" And I was like, "What? He's been talking this entire time." And then I would reread that page. So that did bother me, which I don't know if that's like an art thing because technically color would be art. But I don't know if that's a writer choice or an artist choice.
Uh huh.
But anyway, so aside from page 10 with the solar flare and the solar flare with the flare in the back,
The lens
um,
flare. Hmm.
I thoroughly enjoyed. It was so hard to find the page numbers, just because the thing kept kicking me out. Page 40, when when Hal gets beaten into a meteor, just the impact visual I thought was beautiful and stunning. Um, and hurt with the whole hands and the claws and the gripping
Oh
was
yeah.
painful for me to watch.
It's like you just imagine like all that crap getting under your nails at the same time as just like dragging your hands across hard
See,
rock and
getting the stuff underneath my nails doesn't freak me out or anything like that. It's the whole fact that you probably have no nails afterwards.
right. Well, yeah.
um And then another one of my favorites is page 113, which 113 is just I always pick at least one that's very poster worthy, and 113 is probably one of the most poster worthy pages in this entire volume when he has the flashbacks in outer space, and that gives him the willpower to go on and fight and give his last message. And something that really struck me and made me look at this page for forever was just the fact that not only do you have his full body in outer space, but amongst all of the busyness of the kind of flashbacks, you have his profile set in there,
Uh-huh.
large scale, that
Mhm.
you don't necessarily notice until you work your way down reading, and then you're just like, oh my god.
What I especially love about that profile is that his memories are literally coming out of his head. Like
Yeah.
that's how the art is done on this page. This was also one of my favorites for that reason, because of how they were showing memory by actually having it come out of him to remind him what is going on, and then going from there. I thought that was just incredibly well done, and just the kind of like muted green overlay over them as well,
Mm-hmm.
just to really add into the fact that this is him and the ring
Journal.
really kind of
Oh, yeah.
becoming one.
Yeah.
Um, I thought it was really, really, really awesome. So I fully agree with you on this one. Um,
This is also one of those moments where in that specific page, you truly realize how closely tentative to detail the artist was in terms of showing the progress of time, or progression of time rather,
right.
from being like freshly shaven in his spacesuit, or having like freshly shaven, like being very cut and crisp, and
Mhm.
then having like super scraggly beard.
Yeah. Like groomed versus ungroomed.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and again, it just really goes to show that my favorite panels were the ones that were really in space.
Yeah.
Like the high contrast images and panels. That's what I really liked.
Owen's
Um,
warm tones though did tell a beautiful color story still.
Say that again.
Oa's scenes
Uh,
still told a very beautiful color story. It was just not as eye-catching because of the high contrast that you have in outer space.
right. And I only just noticed that the ship is Oa. It's not a little person. It looks like a little person.
Oh, I never thought it was a little person. I was like, "What do you mean a little person?"
A little person. I wonder if.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Gotcha.
And oh my god, the ship at the beginning of the book is also like that. Just an upside down little person.
In here, I couldn't figure out what it was because I was like, "I feel like that I'm supposed to know what that is from looking at it," and I was like, "And I don't."
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I stood staring at that for or stood, I was sitting when I was reading, but I was staring at that for a good while because it's like, I feel like I'm supposed to know what you are right now, and I do not.
Nice. Um, so, shall we get into ratings?
Sure, sure, sure. Your story first.
Yep. I thought the story was. I mean, I've said a lot about it already, but to kind of summarize my thoughts, I thought the story was really. It was good. It was an interesting origin, especially for being uh, kind of a different origin than the Prime Universe Green Lantern. Um, I would like to know, obviously, more about the world, and maybe that comes from reading all of the various different Earth One series.
Mhm.
Um, what's that?
I was I was adding your
Oh, whoa, whoa.
but in my own voice. I
Yeah,
apologize.
all good. Um, I thought the world building was really neat. Um, I thought the story's pacing could left a little to be desired. I do think that a lot happened in a book that was really only what, like 140 pages. Um,
Was it really 140?
yeah, I mean taking out so I guess 136 and then minus the first like 6 pages, so 130 pages of book.
Yeah.
Um, I uh, I enjoyed it. I got a lot of enjoyment out of this book overall. Um, I just there's still things uh, that I would have maybe liked a little more, and that would have been a little slower pacing. But at the same time, like, how long would this volume have been if the pacing was slower? Um, and overall, I do think it's not a terrible spot for someone to jump in and read, to kind of learn at least more about the psyche of Hal Jordan, because I don't think Hal Jordan really is that different um, in this versus the Hal Jordan in the Prime universe. I could be completely wrong.
And this
Um,
one he struggles a lot more because of choices that he has made.
right,
So, I
and
mean, I feel like this character, this Hal Jordan, has an awful lot more of regret.
gotcha.
Awful lot more regret, not an awful lot more of regret,
Mhm.
um, in my opinion. From It's not like he's my go-to hero, so someone watching this who is a huge Green Lantern fan might be like, "What are you talking about?" But from what I have read, this particular one goes into the ring having stored up so much regret
Yeah.
and
Um,
fear to a degree of what he has done to make
mhm,
amends with that regret, like with what he has done.
for
He feels
sure.
like he ran away, and that is a fear, which then, manifests into the whole mind bubble thing. Going, I will not do that again. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
So uh, it's definitely it's not a story that I wouldn't recommend to someone. If somebody asked me like I want to read a Green Lantern story, this is literally the only Green Lantern story I've read. I would happily recommend it to them with the caveat of, this isn't OG Green Lantern. This is an alternate reality Green Lantern. So just kind of keep that in mind. But it's a good kind of gritty story. That's kind of about learning about yourself and learning about what you can do. I don't know. I would say the story. I would give the story a 7 out of 10.
Um, so I am also leaning towards a 7 out of 10 for similar reasons, I suppose. My biggest thing being I do acknowledge that it's probably a much more enjoyable read for somebody who has some knowledge of the Green Lantern universe, even though you can go into it feasibly and enjoy reading it. It's not one that I would recommend to anybody who is new to comics. It would be somebody that I know um, enjoys them and enjoys very new and experimental takes on the heroes. And it would always be one that I would want to talk to somebody about because of its weird kind of universe shift. Um, Storyline wise, I enjoy the pacing. I enjoy fast paced. I understand what you're saying about it, just in terms of like you want to know so much more about the world that they're in.
Mhm,
So I do agree with that. But having said that, I did thoroughly enjoy the pacing uh, of everything else. I just would have liked more information thrown in,
for
which
sure.
yeah would have
Yeah,
been super long.
it would have
Um,
been
I will
absolutely.
probably read the second volume, just because I did really enjoy it. I like this hero overall.
Yeah, I'll probably do the same. I will
Yeah.
also likely read the second volume just for my own enjoyment.
Yeah. So I'll give it a 7.
Okay.
I was leaning towards a 6 almost at one point, and I was like, no, 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 I did enjoy it.
Uh-huh. Um, no, and I think that's reasonable.
And now I
Um,
start with the art.
you sure do.
So, like I said before, I thoroughly enjoyed this art style. I loved the nods to like classic comic art, while having a grittier take on it that spoke to the overall tone of the comic. I really enjoyed its use on light play, and uh, I think it did its world building really, really well. The space scenes, obviously, were the ones that Ben and I liked the most. But that's not to say that the rest of the art in the book was not equally good.
Mhm.
So I would give this one probably a 9. I did really, really enjoy it. It's not 10 just because when I say 10, that's something that completely blew me away and I would want a hard copy of that book. And I don't for this one, but I appreciate the art style oh so much.
Yeah. Um, so I wrote all of my scores down ahead of time, and I have a feeling your scores and my scores are going to be exactly the same. Because I also rated the art a 9 out of 10. And when it comes to like if I would recommend this book to people, um, I would recommend this book solely based on how much I enjoyed the art,
Yeah.
along with the story. I think the art carries the book a little heavier than the story carries the book, but it is worth seeing. Again, the some of that like classic comic book style mixed in with like these very cinematic um, scenes were just like perfect,
Were
absolutely
they J.J.
perfect.
Abrams storyboarding?
Exactly. Like it is actually what I would imagine like a Green Lantern movie storyboard to look like, cuz there's definitely some pages that look like super sketchy, not like the creepy kind of sketchy, but like the art style kind of sketchy.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and I really enjoyed looking at this book overall. I think I'm in the same boat. Like if I'm gonna give art a 10, it's got to be like bam,
Yeah.
um, and and super consistent throughout the book. Um, I think for me to give this book a 10, the scenes on planets needed to be as strong as the scenes in space.
That's gripping.
Exactly. So that's where my score falls below perfect. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. Perfect.
Okay. And your overall? Or do I do overall?
You do overall because this is your book.
So my overall is an 8.
Hmm. I'm just
Um,
gonna say my overall is also an 8.
yeah. I did feel like the art made up for it to get it out of the 7 for the story. And yeah, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't really have any more to say from what I had said before.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the art carries the book a little more than the story does, um, but it carries it well. Um, it's definitely not a book that I would tell people to stay away from, and is a book that I would recommend to some people.
Mhm.
Um,
And
I
I mean,
th-
I'd be interested to hear you talk about this one after reading a couple more of Green Lanterns.
there's just so many comics to read. That's the whole reason that we do this show is because there are way too many comic books out there, and
And it gives us an excuse to read on our to read list, or at least
right
that's how I'm approaching this. And then, we get our bad DC scores
because we're like,
and
oh, I really want to read
meant
this
to
book,
read.
man. The difference is I feel like I probably read comics a little more frequently than Anna does.
Yeah.
So I can read my trash comics off show and still pick good comics for the show. Um, which is why my score is better.
Yeah. Shut up.
Actually,
I
with
did better
this
on this
book,
one than your Wolverine one.
actually, so just looking at my scoring, overall, Wolverine got a 48. Overall, this got a 48.
Oh,
So
okay. Oh my god.
we both we so yeah, and I rated the story on or overall a 9. You rated it a 7, and we both rated this an 8. So literally the same.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine.
Yep. Although currently you are 9 points ahead of me in your picks.
Overall?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at right now.
It's because my experiments pay off. And I mean, on the bright side, like I do a lot of research for the independents that I pick, whether they're a hit or a miss. I do a lot of research for them. Same with the mangas.
Do do.
You're a child.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, this it cuts it off. Oh well. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would recommend it to other people.
And I'd be interested to have a open discussion with some other comic book lovers about their take on this one in particular.
Especially if Green Lantern is like one of your favorites. You know what?
Yeah.
I'd be interested to my friend Kenny. I'd be interested to know what he thinks of this one because he is a big Green Lantern fan.
Yeah.
Um,
I think I don't want to actually say that because I'm like, I don't remember when the Ryan Reynolds movie came out, but I'm
uh,
pretty sure, like, in combination to painting Kenny's shoes for your guys' wedding
uh-huh.
and the movie coming out made me go, I'm gonna go and see what I can find at the used bookstore of Green Lantern. And then I just so happened to find like some really good starter comics.
I don't doubt that. I feel like I have seen this comic at his. I
This
feel
one
like
in particular?
yeah, the Earth one. I could be absolutely wrong. So, but yeah, next book is my book. It's our independent, and this is the first time that we're reading 2 volumes of a book. So we're reading volume 1 and 2 of Pearl, and that is a Brian Michael Bendis book. B&B. That was the main reason I picked it. Is actually I kept reading on DC Universe Infinite, and as you finish books, once you get to like the final page,
Mhm.
it gives you like recommendations of what you should read, and Pearl kept coming up as a recommendation. So I was like, okay. And then I kept seeing, oh, it's Brian Michael Bendis. I want to read this. Um, so yeah, I picked it up and
Cool.
I've uh, I've enjoyed it so far. I'll obviously I'll save more for when we actually have that episode.
Yeah. I'm a little nervous about my manga pick, honestly.
Oh
So
yeah, the one that I have to buy because you chose yet another manga.
you find mangas that are free, sir.
I do.
And how many of those have we thoroughly enjoyed?
We liked a silent voice.
And I picked Witch's Hat Artelier, which also was free for the
No.
first volume.
Oh yeah, for
Yes,
the first
the
volume
first
it was.
volume.
You are
And the other
correct.
ones I purchased. I bought the other ones. You
You did
didn't.
not. You did not buy Emanon. Had to buy
No,
that
no,
one.
no. I was saying the other
Oh,
which
witch hats. Astro Boy was free. We didn't really love Astro Boy,
no, we didn't.
but it is a loved book, regardless.
It's
Guys,
really hard. And I mean, just finding manga digital is hard.
yeah, that is accurate.
So, I mean, part of me is honestly just tempted to buy first volume mangas paperback, which obviously isn't fair
Me.
uh to the people
Sure.
listening.
Right. So, anyways, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. obviously, again, this show goes live on YouTube every Friday. And kind of stay tuned next week for a couple other little series that we're going to be throwing up on YouTube as well. Anna, where can people find you on the internet?
The Instagram. I have 2 accounts. Anna_Riddick, which has mostly dog related content, and maybe because I'm gonna be baking this weekend. And then I have an art account, which is A_Riddick_designs, which is mostly, art. Ben, what about you?
You can find me everywhere on the internet at It's Ben Pie, ITSBENPAI. And really just going to itsbenpie.com is going to be the best place to find all of my stuff. Yeah. I'm just going
And
to
we
keep it at
have
that.
our own Sibling Rivalry Instagram page.
Yep, and all of the links for Sibling Rivalry related things, if you go to itsbenpie.com/comic book club, you'll find our Instagram, our Facebook, which we really neglect and probably need to be a little better about posting on, the podcast hosting services, the YouTube, and yeah, that's it.
And so until next time,
Shalom-Aste.
We need to get better at being in sync, brother.
Well, it's hard to do over Discord because there's Discord delay and all that.
That's fine. Fine,
Yeah.
fine, fine.